Oh, hi, I didn't see you there. I'm Ian McCombs. I'm going to talk to you about some writing. Let's talk about the next book that I wrote, which is Book 8, which was the sequel of Book 7. And so my last video I talked about Book 7. This book is Book 8, and I went almost directly from Book 7 to Book 8. I maybe had a couple of months as I stopped writing Book 7 and thought about it and really enjoyed writing it and had a lot of epiphanies about my own writing and how much I loved it. I went straight into Book 8 because I wanted to continue that feeling. And when I do write, I love it so much that when I finish writing, a lot of times I'll have a period of mourning where I'm sad that I'm not writing, I'm not dealing with those characters anymore, and I feel kind of bad that I'm not with them. Pardon me as I burp. One of the things that I did then was I moved directly from Book 7 to Book 8, and I just enjoyed it so much. However, one of the things that's weird about Book 8 is that it was such a slog. And I'm not saying that in a bad way, which is kind of odd. It took me forever to get out of a chapter. It took me forever to get through a chapter in places where I thought I would have a very discrete scene, move to the next, discrete scene, move to the next. It didn't happen, and so I ended up doing a lot of thinking about this book. I had an outline, a basic one. I'm a very plantser. I do a lot of both writing by the seat of my pants and planning it out. Things change as I do write. As I moved forward with the book, I realized that that was really who I was. I couldn't overplan, I couldn't underplan. I had to keep it where I was writing, but things worked to a semi-organic way, because if I didn't do that, then it didn't speak to me and I didn't enjoy writing it. As I continued with writing that book and slogging through it, the characters, though, I have to say, are some of my most favorite that I've ever written. They're people that I deeply love and that they're going to have. And it's one of the few things I've done is a lot of times with sequels is I write, a generation past or side characters that you want to know more about, but I don't write necessarily the same people over and over. With this book, though, I really wanted to, because I felt like their story had just started. The book itself is 280,000 some words. I think it's 281 something. So there's a ton of stuff in that book, and I realized that if I'm ever going to edit it, which it desperately needs one, and there's a couple things that I had missed throughout the whole book. There has to be, book 1 is 120, then book 2 of that, book 8, is another 120, pared down a little bit, cut down some of the stuff, because if I feel that it's a slog to get through, then a reader would feel that it was a bad slog as well. I don't want to put them through that, because I know when I read a book and it's a slog and it's just, you're not feeling like you're getting anywhere, it doesn't feel good reading it. For me, some people really enjoy that. Everybody's got their own thing. One of the things with this book also, though, is when I got to the end and the ending that I had imagined when I first started planning the book and thinking about the book, I had forgotten a couple very key, important details in the ending that I had set up in the beginning, but I hadn't continued with the story. And so that's probably, other than the slogness of the book, is that I forgot those key details. It's essentially, I think it was chapter 3 or something like that, and 2 chapters, because there are a ton of them, chapter 45, something like that. I completely missed out. And then so chapter 46 is when it comes back in, and I went, oh, I haven't put this part that was very important foreshadowing and very important stuff to explain the ending. It's just not in the book, which was very disappointing. But again, something you learn. I'm going to fix that. I put notes in like in the beginning and say, okay, this is what needs to change. Add this, do this. So that way I'll keep a running idea of what needs to be changed as I'm going along. Another thing that I think I did really well with the book is the characterization, because there are a lot of characters in the book to go through. It is a huge epic fantasy type book. And I think I did well, and people will say, well, not every character is perfectly fleshed out, or not everybody has a character arc, but flat arcs are a thing too. Not everybody needs a character arc, and I know I read a lot of things about this online and see videos about it, especially in movies. Well, no, not every character needs a character arc. Some plots, some especially side characters, minor characters, back characters, even main characters don't necessarily need a character arc in the whole 3-act structure type, or even a 5-act structure type. Some people just are decent people from the beginning to the end, and their character arc is just them being decent people and inspiring the people around them. And that's perfectly okay way to write a character. And I had a couple of those in the book, and I know some folks, oh, you didn't write this kid, they don't have a character arc. And I think some folks, when they, especially I noticed this with movie critique, is there's a certain, your movie must have these 22 elements. And if any one of these elements are missing, then, oh, it's not a good movie. But there are different ways to tell stories. There are definitely different ways to express stories, and you don't have to go by just a checklist. And it's easy to go by a checklist. And eventually, one of my books, I followed the Save the Cat Writes a Book plot outline pretty directly just to write a book like that. And it's one of my more successful books, I think, writing that way. However, in this book, not everybody has a character arc, which is fine, and it works well in some ways. So not every character needs to be an in-your-face, look at me, I have a character defining moment, and because not everybody's going to be like that. And it's okay to have differences in characters to make it so not everybody is the same, because people aren't the same. I hear a lot of criticism about writing or movies, and it needs to be realistic in some way, shape, or form. But when you're dealing with high fantasy, when you're dealing with things like that, realism kind of goes out the door in a lot of ways, and also sometimes you're trying to write somebody who isn't great at talking, or someone who's just a listener, someone who's helping their friends rather than trying to be the center of attention. And that's a good way to write, because you want differences in characterization, differences in characters, because everybody can't just be the center main character. If you've never watched the Trope Talk by Overly Sarcastic Productions, definitely go check them out. They have a great set of talks, and they talk about the Lancer and the main character and the mentor and all that. Really good talks about all those different aspects of storytelling, which I really would highly recommend if you're learning how to write or investigating how to write. Definitely a great series to read, to listen up on, to read up on, and look at those things. Anyhow, I'm doing a one-take video to see how that works and see if things work. Tried to really desperately not to say "and so," because I tend to say that way too much in my videos. I think I only had 3. We'll see how that works in post, as they call it. We'll fix it live, as one guy said. Anyway, take care of yourself. Love you. Have a great day. I hope your writing or whatever you're doing brings you peace, love, and happiness.